Well, hello there, folks. It's been a while since I updated this, and I thought it was about time I got a new video out for you guys. Sorry for the long delay. It's been a crazy busy year this year. Um, I've had a lot of things happen, but through all of the ups and downs, I've managed to find my way into a new spiritual path, which I was always spiritual, but didn't really have a choice on a path originally. So now I've hit that exact point in time where basically I am finally working on a path. And I'm going to tell you the story of how I got there. About 6 months ago, I gave up my apartment and moved into my dad's. And though there were some great times, there were also some really, really rough times. When all came to shove, I ended up going to a retreat. But before that, I was standing out having a cigarette because I smoke, and managed to watch an elk, a female doe, walk through my father's yard. Nova Scotia hasn't had elk in a very, very, very long time. Most of the men have been hunted out, and as such, Shubenacadie Resort Park here, which is a natural park, decided they were going to work to try and bring the elk back in. In 2001, they brought in 18 elk. They now have 21. They're not missing any, though, because I called them and asked. So at the time, I couldn't exactly figure out why there was an elk walking through this yard. I ended up in a situation where that same elk actually came back about a month and a half later, in which my cousin and I were both out for a cigarette, and she got to see it too. So at that point, it kind of became confirmed. Now, we spent 2 days looking around this yard trying to figure out if there were tracks, if there was any way that this elk could have gotten here, how she had gotten there, where she had come from. We checked both directions that she came from. No tracks anywhere. Not a single one. So by the end of it, we were left in a situation stumped, going, what's going on here? How do we have an elk walking through the yard? Like, my dad's yard is all like jagged coming down. There's no way that this elk would have made it up and through, so far as we know, without hurting herself. And Shubenacadie Park was not missing any of their elk. So the closest thing we could figure out was that the chances are that this was a spirit elk. Now, I haven't seen or heard spirits since I was little, but I used to deal with them a lot when I was younger, and it kind of, my talents changed. Like, now I do tarot. I feel spirits more than I see them, but I also was able to connect with nature at a very, very, very young age. So when this elk came through and we realized it was a spirit elk, it was like the aha moment, because there's no way this poor elk was going to get up to us. So that was a really neat sort of thing. Anyways, I segue here so that you understood the background. I went to a retreat before I left my dad's. It was a healing retreat, mostly earthbound people. And what I found out was that it was definitely an elk spirit. Now, the first task that we had when we went to this retreat was to go and talk to a tree. So, of course, I'm in my glory about this, because I'm like, I've been talking to trees since I was a kid, so this is not really something new for me. So on the way down, I'm going through and I'm, walking this path, and I can see this glow. And I'm like trying to figure out where this glow is that I can see. and I came across finally this huge birch. This thing must have been probably 200 to 400 years old. It was huge. Anyways, it had two peat moss rocks on the side, just covered rocks, solid granite rocks covered in peat moss, and then a third one down at the front. And I was like, oh, it's you that's calling me. Oh, okay, I can totally dig this. So started talking to the tree, gave it the tobacco, did the traditional sort of talk with the tree thing. As I was leaving and had asked for help for healing, I found a branch that was just kind of hanging around. It was a birch branch. And, I'm like, oh, cool. I'll take this back to the circle. I'll go and make a really nice wand out of this. So I get back to the circle and I'm sitting here and I'm working on this and, going through and trying to whittle it and shave it down and sand it and get it ready. And, well, I didn't get very far before I realized that it wasn't a wand at all. It was a set of antlers. Deer antlers, to be specific. Now, it was just the way it was shaped. Like this branch was just not meant to be a wand. It was meant to be a set of antlers. And I was like, all right, universe, you win. Here we go. So, we're going through this, and I ended up getting a crystal set into the center of it. And basically wrapped the tip in leather and did the different stuff with it and that sort of thing. And completed the task. And then I, sat down and I told the story at show and tell the next night. And apparently it wowed a lot of people, which was, I've always been very solitary about my spirituality. I don't generally come out in the open much. A very good friend of mine asked me to do a calling of the corners for him back about a year and a half ago. And I really struggled with it because it was one of my best friend's dying wish that I do one of the corners in his ceremony for going away. So after he passed away and after I had been working on this, I went out and basically did this ceremony with 3 other corners and, that sort of thing. But it was really kind of I didn't know how to react. I was very nervous, but, I know my energy, so I kind of kept it in and didn't really deal too much with it. Got through that, back to the retreat, get to the retreat, doing these different things with the retreat, and as time goes on, it suddenly becomes apparent that the elk seems to be a theme for me. No matter which way I go, I end up with this elk showing up, which led me down a path by the end of the retreat of realizing, okay, universe, you win, you got me. So, I have now made that transition. I am starting that transition from what I used to do into moving now more towards medicinal and shamanic sort of magic, which I believe elk has officially become my my form of medicine. So that's been kind of a challenging get-go, but I'm kind of between places too right now, so I'm kind of a wanderer right now. I do want to get my own stuff sorted out and set up before I do more videos and start doing classes, because I've had a few people ask. But I would really prefer to kind of be in my own environment for that. It's not something I can do easily around others. So I'm kind of in the in-between stages right now of getting stuff done while working on some of my art projects. So I thought I would jump into the art side that has happened since all this spiritual path sort of opened up to me When I left my dad's, I found a piece of wood. It's actually like a very long piece of wood. It's probably big. It is a staff, effectively. Um, Now I had been looking for years to try and find the right type of wood, the right length, and here I am leaving my dad's after everything has happened. And I turn around, I go around his garage, and here, laying, just sitting there, right in the ground, is this huge piece of wood. And I'm looking at this, and I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting how I have been here for 4 months and never noticed that. Picked it up and went, all right, you're about the right height, the right width, everything else. So, I'm going to make a staff out of you. So, a friend of mine who had been to the retreat with me, she had a good laugh at this because it was just how everything kind of lined up. One thing after another, leading to me suddenly having the staff after giving the antlers from the retreat to my cousin so that she had them. So here I am, I've now got this piece of wood, and my girlfriend comes over and she's looking at this piece of wood and she's like, Roberta, that's cedar wood. She says, and you know what's really odd about that? There are not a whole lot of cedars in Nova Scotia. She says, but during Fiona, one of the very few trees that was cedar, a huge, huge cedar tree, came down in the graveyard in the community in which my dad lived. They cut this cedar up and they sent it out to everybody. And basically, I suspect that's how this piece of red cedar ended up at my father's yard that was not being used. So I'm like, okay, so here I am walking a shamanic path, knowing that elk is now my animal, and I have a cedar staff starting out from a graveyard when shamans walk between the world of the living and the dead. Aha. Well, fancy that. That's rather appropriate. So, I've been working on her for a while, and working with her, she made her opinion very known to me. She is a snake. She's an albino boa constrictor. And as you can see, that right there, including the handle I made. And to learn, my teacher taught me how to do that. So she showed me the first one. And then I put the handle on, and then I put the second level of snakewood on with, the kind of girly kerfits on it. And basically it went from there. But her name is Beauty. Right here, she's got an amethyst. This is a carnelian. She's got an amethyst again here on her third eye. And a lot of this was gifted to me to actually make Beauty. One of the local pagan shops gave me a lot of the stuff for her, including the little aventurine pieces you see here. So I'm really thankful to Into the Mystic for that in Cole Harbour, because they were absolutely fantastic when they found out that I was going to be working on this. She has also a little booty on her, as you can see there. Yeah. So that is Beauty, and I've been working on her now for about 2.5, 3 months, but it's a lifelong project. I assume she's probably going to be with me my whole life, and most likely going with me to the next retreat. In the process of all the moves around, I moved to another place where I went for a walk one day, walked out the back area, and a friend of mine pointed out this huge, like it's a little birch, but it had the rooting system still on it. Literally it would have originally been connected to the mycelia network via these nodules. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. They're doing a lot of renovations around the building that I'm currently staying at. And I figure as a result of that, this birch got pulled out. When I started working on her, because I picked her up and brought her back to the apartment, I was like, oh, she's going to make a beautiful staff. I'll make another staff. Like, this is cool. And then I found out that she wasn't a staff at all. She's actually a cane and represents the other element that runs with me. Beauty runs with the earth because she's a snake. And my cane runs as my sky tie. So this right here is the cane that I have been working on. You can see clearly here. I just got to switch her around so that you can get a better view. That she's a crow on one side. All the gem work included. And then she's got another stone down here for protection. She's got a dragon's bloodstone here. And on the other side, she's fish. So that's 3 elements in one. When I started working on this, I was going to make it kind of like my original thought was to make a live crow on one side and kind of like a dead crow on the other to represent the harbinger of death in between, the messenger of death and everything else, which goes a lot in common with Druid and shamanic beliefs. However, when I started working on her, she wasn't turning out to be a dead crow. She ended up turning out to be a fish. So, now I have a fish on one side and a crow on the other. And the latest that I've just added as of last night is, it's a handmade crystal, human-made crystal, this one. But it's on the end here, and I punched it through the bottom, glued it in, and eventually the way that it's going to look when you look is this is going to be your piece that you're going to use for grabbing the ground. So that's kind of where that went. And because she is crystal, even if she's human made, she's still going to harness the power of the earth and sky when you put her into the ground. So that is how this cane came to be. The other one that I've been working on, when I got this, I realized she was a cane and wand, not a staff. The other one I'm working on currently is right here. And it's going to be, it's the other end of the birch, actually, but it's also got a crystal in the end here for harnessing. And this is all aventurine up in here, bound with leather. And there's going to be a leather-bound crystal on the top once it's finished. So not only are you getting connection to earth through this one, you're getting connection of sky through this one here. So that's going to give you a bit of an idea of what's been going on in my world. I have been asked by a few people to teach them. And I finally kind of was like, I don't know. I don't think I'm a very good teacher. But when I was at the retreat, I had one of the grandmothers who already thought I was a grandmother. She didn't even realize that I had not taught anybody. And I was like, okay. Now, in talking with Selena Moon, it became apparent that I had already told one of the stories of Odin to several of the members who didn't really know a lot about Odin at the retreat. And I found that though it's uncomfortable for me, it is something I could probably do and teach more. When I left the retreat and came back into town, Two friends of mine actually asked me to teach them again. And finally I said yes. Now, right now, classes are off because I'm between apartments. But once the apartment gets set back up, we should be good. That being said, I've also started to work on my music again for my voice, though I'm not quite comfortable yet videoing that. But you'll probably see a little bit of that later down the road. Anyways, because it's so late in the year this year, I'm not going to make it for a Yule video. So I'm just going to say Happy Yule to everybody now. And when the time comes, I'll put another video out in early spring, probably close to Ostara, I figure. In the meantime, I wish you all luck. I now have 2 teachers. They're great. And hopefully we can take this whole journey, all of us together, and work on things together. You guys have a great night.